Hi, my name is Bella Carrasco, and helping others feel confident about investing brings a huge smile to my face. After working in the private equity, family office, and securities markets for nearly a decade, I am breaking down the world of money, investing, and financial freedom. Work optionality isn't a dream, it's a decision you make today. I bring you actionable tips, expert interviews, and enlightening strategies to help you get richer and stay that way. This is the How Do You Know podcast. And this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Please consult with a qualified financial professional for advice specific to your situation. The views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of the podcast producers or sponsors. We make no representations or warranties regarding the accuracy or completeness of the content. In this episode, we are digging into some basic financial concepts because the key to wealth building is knowing your options. And I thought Stephanie would be perfect for this because she has spent her career in finance and tech, from writing earnings reports for a Fortune 500, building a finance tech startup, and closing large software deals with banks. But now she has started Huntress Wealth, a platform that helps women manage and wield power, as well as her own commercial development firm. So, Stephanie, there is no doubt you are both impressive and experienced. And so I wanted to talk about budgeting, financial goals, and investing overall today because you have so much valuable knowledge to share. Definitely want to chat more about Huntress Wealth a little bit later on, but thought it would be best to start with an overview of different asset classes or different investment options that people have.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Bella. So excited to be on the pod with you. Longtime listener, first time. So when you think of different asset classes that we can go, there's lots of different ways to look at that, right? But usually when you say that, people think about the stock market, right? And we talk about growth versus value stocks. We talk about small, medium, big, right? And you've got your S&P 500. Or we talk about like domestic versus international. Like those are all the different ways to think about different asset classes inside of the public markets. But I think you and I are both partial to the notion that the stock markets aren't the only way to invest. There's not the only assets out there. And so these are often grouped into like alternatives, right? It's just like a big bucket that is not homogenous. Like none of these investments look the same, but it's just like the other bucket. And so that's when you're talking about things like real estate or oil and gas, like wells or operations. Like I'm not the expert necessarily in oil and gas.
Yeah, it's a hard asset class to get my head around myself.
Yeah, I haven't gotten there yet, but it's out there. It's all learnable.
Yeah.
And then venture capital, which is something I'm also kind of into for my, life in the tech world. So none of those look the same. And there's even more than that, right? Those are just some of the big ones out there. And so when we think about diversification across all of these things, it's really about getting the right level of risk to get compensated for that risk. And, the public markets have risk in them. It's a good, decent place to go get rewarded for investing your money. But there's also this kind of whole world outside of public markets as well.
Yes, exactly. We bonded over the fact that we can acknowledge that the public markets are there, but also that alternative investments have their place. And even within the stock market, the bond market, alternatives and venture capital, like you laid out, there's this notion of value investing and growth investing. So what is the difference between those two?
Yeah. So value investing is when you're going after your like tried and true, like cash generators, like your return generators. You know what you're going to put in and the money you're going to probably, again, there's risk to it, but probably going to get out. Right. And so those strategies exist within all of these different asset classes. It's not like one asset class is one versus the other. So like within stocks, value investing is usually going after a higher dividend paying, or maybe they're doing a lot of stock repurchase activity. But like the stocks that are known entities that have steady growth, that are doing what they're supposed to do and turn off, like spin out dividends or other returns. On the growth investing side, these are You're really making the bet that this company is still growing. They found a market opportunity and the value of the stock itself is going to change. So you can sell out of it later, right? And realize that value. So that is a growth strategy. So you don't necessarily know what the outcome is going to be, but you think there's going to be an upside and you're investing in that future growth.
And to your point earlier, hopefully you're getting compensated for taking an extra level of risk. So everything is going to have some sort of risk, whether it is value or growth, and you just have to decide whether that level of risk is worth taking.
Well, and having a balance of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you can look, I'll first mention like in real estate, right? Value investing looks more like buying existing assets that have known cash flows and assuming that cash flow is going to continue to be there and be steady and grow a
Yeah.
little bit. Whereas growth investing is finding the property that either needs a renovation or rehab, it's repositioning a property, or going from ground up, right? It's the most extreme kind of growth investing in the real estate class.
Right.
The talking about the like all of it generally is like why you need a mix is at certain times growth stocks perform better or growth assets perform better, and at sometimes value performs better. And so there's certainly a stretch in history where if you only bought small company stocks, you would have done so well, right? But then there's other times in history where owning that blue chip S&P 500 company outperforms the rest of the market. And so it's really about having a blend because we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know which ones are
Right.
going to like do better at a given time.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's so hard to predict. Even the experts who live in this day in and day out, it's very hard for them to even outperform the market. So the best way to hedge against that is, like you said, just have a little bit of both. And that way you're winning in some sort of area because we don't know when that will be.
Yeah. We can track what we think interest rates will be and inflation will be. And so those are two, like when you're looking at a broad trend perspective, if you understand how those two things impact growth and value assets, right, like there is perhaps a slight variation in your asset allocation you might choose, but you're certainly never really want to be all in one or all in the other.
Right. Is there a 30-second quick educational blurb you can spit out about when value might be better than growth in the relationship with interest rates?
Yeah, so when interest rates are low, it's really cheap for companies to invest and it's really cheap for consumers to buy. So you tend to see growth is like gasoline is poured on it. So it's good for like value stocks too, but some of the notion there is like they don't have that big opportunity to go put a whole bunch of new capital in, but growth stocks do. Like that's the bet there is that if they had more money, they would like know exactly what to go do with it and how to. So low interest rates tend to fuel growth stocks, whereas higher interest rates tend to fuel the people who are taking less risk in their business and don't need necessarily that extra capital infusion to continue to execute on their strategy.
Because when debt is cheaper, you're able to take on a little bit more risk to get that growth. So beautifully put.
Is debt usually. So equity is usually a little cheaper when debt is cheaper.
Right. Yep, exactly. And another component of all of this is even just trying to kind of sift through all the noise because all of the different investment options typically always put out the bright and rosy, this is why you should invest today. And you had a great LinkedIn post recently on what you're not falling for. What are some of the most important ones you'd highlight there?
There's a few different things in that. Some of them are cheeky, right? But probably the ones I am most passionate about is like the idea of risk tolerance, the idea that like there is it all boils down to preference and like how much risk can you handle? Like it's some like personal judgment. I really like shifting the conversation to risk capacity, which is really a function of how much you have, how much you need, how long you have. And so like if you are living paycheck to paycheck, you have very low risk tolerance, right? You can't afford not to have that next paycheck. But once you've built up some of savings in that investment portfolio, right, you can afford to lose a little bit more. Like your like you're still going to be able to put food on the table. And at some point, it's like, you're still going to be able to hit your retirement goals. Like, go take the big swing, sweetheart, right? Like, there's your ability to take on risk changes with how much you have, and again, how much you need. And so it's more like a formula and less like how much can you stomach. Some of my other ones are like whole life insurance. I am just like not gonna be like, it's not an investment. Maybe there's a role in it, like within a financial portfolio, like life insurance generally is something to consider, but like whole life being sold as an investment is like, I'm going to look you in the eyes every time. You're like, probably not a good idea.
Is that because the returns are so low?
It is because I think it's important everywhere in the financial industry to learn how people make money, because
definitely
it's money you probably could be going and making yourself.
Mm.
So whole life is basically taking your money and going and making money on it and then paying you a lesser amount. So like if you had just taken that money and gone and invested it easily, not like with a whole lot of complex stuff, you're probably going to make more money than your whole life returns.
Got it.
And so there are some like uber high net worth people that there are some strategies there that I won't get into. But like for your emerging wealth person, and also even for your like normal rich person, like those aren't necessarily strategies that apply here. And so it's less whether or not the investment works, and it's more that it's like sold that way. Like it's very it's people are definitely out to make a buck off of it.
Right. Yeah, you see so much of that rhetoric on life insurance online, like, oh, life insurance is a scam. So it's just sometimes hard to decipher through all that noise, kind of what we were just chatting about earlier. But I guess that makes sense. Like it's the opportunity cost of using that cash for something else that can generate a little bit more return for you versus if you're truly just using it as a life insurance policy instead.
Yeah, like you still have risk exposure. You're just not like getting as well compensated for taking on that risk.
That makes sense.
And then kind of like my other big one is like when people think about women in finance, they immediately go to like budgeting and spending and saving and not like investing. Like even I was mentioning this morning to someone that I was joining this podcast, and I think they expected me to say like, oh yeah, like we're going to talk about how to save money and like where to buy this cheaper or whatever. And it's like, no, we're talking about alternative investments like real estate and venture. Like,
ever heard of it?
The notion that like we can carry that conversation, we're interested in that conversation. And it's not that like everyone's expected to already know this. Like I have the privilege of spending time in these industries, and so do you. But it's like, it's very learnable. It's just another asset class.
Exactly.
But just like investing generally, it's something, assuming women aren't interested or aren't capable is like a big no for me.
And it always just blows my mind to think that, was it like the 70s and 80s was the first time women could even open a bank account for themselves, and then a few years later we could open one without a man. It wasn't that long ago.
No.
Yeah.
At all. Certainly, like when you think of our mothers, like certainly by the time they were like adults, like maybe this was their norms, but they weren't born with that. And so the times have changed. But even beyond women, like 401ks also were introduced around that.
Yep.
Roth IRAs or late 90s. Like none of this is like so ingrained as like knowledge we get to pass down through families. Like we have to go get it from other sources.
Right. Exactly. Ideally someone who lives and breathes in it, because there's so many moving pieces. Laws are constantly changing. So you want to make sure that you're actually getting in front of an expert who's constantly making sure that they're staying attuned to all of it.
Yeah. And there's, like, especially when it comes to like taxes, there's like federal versus state, like there's there is a lot of complexity. That doesn't mean it always has to be complex. It's just like talking and talking with experts, talking with friends, like talking about it is.
Hi, I want to interrupt for a quick second because I am a big believer in emulating off of who you want to be. And I've gone through Christopher's program at Wealth Ops where he truly gives you the education you need to help you manage wealth like a microfamily office. I encourage you to take a second to read his article or visit his website at wealthops.io that will be linked as well. Okay, thanks. Back to it.
So.
Right, exactly. Well, thank you for summing that up very quickly on the post about what you're not falling for. I thought it was great. But going back to what you started with about just analyzing where you are, do you even have enough to barely save, or are you not saving at all? Do you have a big savings account? I'm a big believer in you have to look at where you are today and start planning. So, what is the best way for someone to start creating a budget? How should people think about managing debt, building credit, and saving for larger purchases like buying a home, getting married, having kids, all that stuff?
Yeah. So I think those are kind of three distinct questions. So there was budget, there was debt, and there was large purchases. Generally budget there, like I'm not a huge budgeter. I'm not and I don't mean that, I mean that personally, but I just mean as an ethos, and should make more than you spend, right? Like that at the end of the day is what budgeting is. Now, how to do that, if you're really focused on needing to change that equation, then when you're looking at a budget, my favorite way of doing that, like low shame, it is what it is. You're not bad for buying the latte or the concert tickets, is having your needs be less than 50% of your budget. Your wants being like the next 30%, and then your savings and investment being the next 20%. And those are rough, right? And so within that, I'm a huge believer of keeping housing costs as low a part of your budget as possible, or as feasible, to live in a safe, enriching place, right? And so I'm a huge fan of the 30% rule. Banks will let you go up to 36%, but 30% rule on like your housing costs as a percent of your income, right? If you can get a nice apartment at 20%, great, go do that, right?
Yeah.
The more you build in there, the more you can shift to investments or wants. And then within that is definitely the minimum payments on your debt. I think it would be hopefully more than minimum payments on any high interest debt. It's your housing, car, right? If you're in a car dependent city, like there's some like required to be able to get to a job, to be able to feed your kids, like required spending. Within the wants, let's go travel, go buy the shoes, like maybe contribute to like political causes or donate to things. Like all of that can be like in the wants category. But that 20% going to saving and investing is a big number. Like people hear that, and that's like a lot of your paycheck, right? But as close as you can get to that 20% going to saving and investing, the further ahead you'll get. Depending on your paycheck, that could be a few $100 a month, right? And it doesn't feel like a lot,
Right.
but it like adds up. And it's important to know that includes your anything you're able to do through work. If you've got a 401k and match, right, you can like start to tick up to like 20% when you're including those pieces.
I like that framework, just keeping it simple. Make sure that you have more income than you're spending. Let's start with that.
Yeah.
And then from there, if you want to buy the concert tickets or whatever it might be, ask yourself, am I paying myself first? Do I really need this? Is my future self going to kick me in the butt for doing this? And just having that framework. But a question that popped up when you were talking was, since homes are really unaffordable these days, do you think, or I guess it comes from a reel that I just saw yesterday, and it was like Bad Bunny rents his apartment he doesn't buy because by the time you have a down payment and pay your taxes and all that, if you just invest that somewhere else, you'd actually be better off in the long run. So when people are trying to make that decision between buy a home versus continue to rent, do you think that it's more of a financial decision, or should it really just be, no, this is actually not really an investment decision at all. It's just, do I want to have a home for my family instead of being in an apartment sort of situation?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, right? And also, just like back to that reel, I would love for someone to actually ask Bad Bunny and have him give us that answer, because we
Love
don't know
that.
why he's renting, right?
Yeah,
Like, people make these decisions for all kinds of reasons. It could be he's just like doing a project in that city for a year and doesn't want to like have
such
the
a good
hassle of
point.
owning real estate. And it could be related to interest rates, but also maybe not, right? So it is, there are like life milestone things that aren't pure math, right? Like the, yeah, sure, we'd have to go do the math on spreadsheets, which I do. I'm that person. I'm a weird
Yeah,
person.
me
But like,
too.
does it make sense to rent versus buy? And like, there's a formula to get you that answer, right? But is having like a place that you can really invest in and paint all the walls and like,
Yeah,
make your own. Are you planning to be there for a while? Right? Like, that's a very different decision. Now, how
right.
much you can afford is back to the math, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like the general rent versus buy is going to be a lot more of a kind of personal values choice. Like, what are you prioritizing right now choice than straight math.
And it also is okay if you're renting a home or something, a condo, you never know when the owner is going to sell, and then you're going to have to pack up your entire house and move, which is a whole other can of worms. But
Rent increases, you're subject to
yeah,
inflation. Once you buy that house and you're locked into a mortgage, you are inflation free, my friend.
that's right.
Like,
Yep.
it is steady. And so that there's a whole lot of stability in home ownership. But not everybody has 5 or 10 year plans for where they're living, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
flexibility is also valuable. And frankly, there's points where we bought our first house in 2013,
Mm.
and our financial picture in 2013, like newlyweds, mid 20s, like what we could afford, was very different than even just 3 years later. Like,
Yeah.
certainly that in your 20s and 30s, like your financial picture can change drastically every few years, potentially, right?
Right.
And I was like, dang, we should have like waited a year because I could have bought a much nicer house, right? Which isn't super true, because housing, it was 2013, was a great time to buy. Market time,
Right.
excellent. But it's like, if you feel like there's a lot of motion in your financial picture, that might be another reason not to buy right away.
Right. Yeah, all great tips. And I always like to say you can always refinance out of a higher rate.
Yeah.
But if you buy a house that's overvalued, you're stuck with that value. So I
Mm-hmm.
always like to keep that in people's minds too.
I'm not in the market right now, but from that perspective, it's like rates aren't forever. You can
Yeah.
definitely refi, and rates are impacting housing prices though. So like,
Yes.
the headline number is getting cheaper, like how much debt you have to take out,
Hmm.
or how much equity you have to put down, like, is lower than it was, at least in my market. And so it's like, oh man, maybe I should be a home buyer right now. Cause again, you can
Yeah.
always refi. Can I tell you something?
Ooh, yeah.
This house, we bought it in 2020.
Mm,
Prices were high, but they got
yeah.
higher in Austin. So like, we're still sitting in the green on the house.
Oh, that's great.
But we bought the house at, I believe it's a 3.65 interest rate, and we were like mad because like our like person advising us had like, was like, oh, lock it in, they're gonna go up, like.
Yeah.
And then that was actually the highest they were, 3.65
Mm,
being the high, which is crazy because it's like super low historically.
right.
And so like, we locked in, we were like mad about it. 6 months later, we refied down to like a 2.65.
Oh my
We
gosh.
are on a sub 3 interest
You can
rate.
never leave. Can never leave.
Well, people say that I can never sell.
Sell, right.
So like, if we do, like, one of the reasons we're certainly not in the market is because if we move into a next house, it's not going to include selling this one.
Yeah.
And so it's like we're saving up for potentially another down payment or a remodel on the house, TBD.
Yeah.
But it's that we're not locked into our living situation. We are locked into our asset ownership situation.
There you go.
With math.
Yes, because you can definitely get some good rental cash flow from that if you were to ever decide to.
Yeah.
But just to round out this budgeting discussion, last question here is, what's the best way to set financial goals?
Values led. Always. And if it's just you, fantastic. You can sit down, think about what's important to you. And obviously, hopefully, maybe I'll take that back. Retirement is on most people's list. But I know a whole lot of people tell me they never plan to retire. So maybe that's on your financial goals or not. But whether it's, buy a house, even take a big trip, right? For me, it was start a company. There's a whole lot of things that have kids.
Yes.
That aren't necessarily just retirement. So when we think of financial planning, a whole lot of people in their 20s and 30s don't think it's for them because they think it's about something that's so far in the future. Right? And it's no, it's all the way back to now. What you do today will impact next month, next year, next decade.
Yeah.
When you're a little bitty in a retirement home. It is a now thing to set your trajectory. So I also think values-based, not being afraid to put clarity to that goal. So a rough timeline, maybe you're not in the market for a house now. You think it might be in the next 3 years, or you think it might be in the next 5 years. You don't have to have that exact date in mind, but you do need go ahead, take a risk, put a timeline to your goals.
Yeah.
It can change, but it's easy to go change a plan. But if that is preventing you from setting a plan, that's not great.
Yeah, I love that.
And the last thing is amount, right? And so again, amounts can change. I'm dealing with this with college. So I have a 6-year-old. Hopefully she goes to college in 12 years. How much is it going to cost? Is she going to go to private or public? Is she going to be in state or not? Is she even going to go to college because she wants to be a singer-songwriter, right? The unknown of how much college is going to cost because it's based on so many decisions and however my child evolves into an adult. It's just a nebulous number, but my husband and I, we picked a number. We're working towards that number and we'll adjust. It's that we can handle change. So again, values-based, time, and then having the guts to put a number to it.
I also want to reiterate the point of it's not all financial decisions. Starting out with your values is a very important place to start. And then just starting is super important. So I love that you highlighted if you don't know what's going to happen in 5 years, that's okay. This is simply a projection. You should be revisiting it often. So just being able to have that initial shell of a plan is better than none at all.
Yeah. I can guarantee your plan is wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't mean you shouldn't make it. It's an excellent tool. And I think hopefully that gives people a lot of freedom. It's not something you can really mess up because you're definitely going to get it wrong. The goal isn't to get it right.
Exactly.
The goal is to think through it and have strategies and plans.
Exactly. Which now helps me move on to Huntress. Can you provide an overview of why you started it and what members get out of joining?
I started it because I want women to hold equal power in business, government, and our society. And I don't think we do today. And I think a large portion of that is because we don't hold as much wealth. So women hold about 30% of the wealth, which is not 50% or 51.4%, whatever our ratio of existence is in the United States. And so we definitely have wealth inequality generally, but I'm talking gender inequality here. And so taking a closer look as to why that exists. And certainly a lot of people go to the pay gap, which does exist. And super unfun fact, it gets worse as you get older. So there's almost parity in your 20s, slight difference in your 30s, the motherhood penalty, maybe. And then there's actually it gets way worse in your 40s and 50s. And so it's, I think a lot of women don't realize that that is hopefully something we can change. Hopefully we're like on a good trajectory, but there's very real risk to your income not growing, at least on par with men.
Sure.
And so if you look at the income gap, the pay gap, it only explains about 18% of the difference, right? And that's, we're talking if we're 30%, men are 70%. So there's like a much bigger delta than 18% happening here. If you go look at how confident women are investing, it is a massive gap. It's like women are like 68% are not at all confident investing. And for men, that number is like in the 30s. And it's like, that is a huge impact on building wealth. Like, you can't work 40 years spending all your money and even saving, unless you're saving half your money to sustain 70 or 80 years of living in your adult life. Right? Like, the math doesn't math. You have to invest to close that gap. And women are more likely to wait till they have more cash to do it, which is good to build up some of that cushion, right? Like, there's certainly a good, healthy amount, but women hold more on average than men before they start investing. And then they invest less, and then they invest in much safer assets, right? And I say safe because like all investments are at risk. And so it could all go to zero. That's like a financial disclosure. Your money could all disappear. But it probably won't. If you go look at history and how things work and how we compensate for risk, it's very unlikely that is going to happen. And so when you compound all of those things, probably the word compound is a major factor there, right? Is they just add up to women holding less money. So in starting Huntress, we're like, cool, we're going to like start this app to help women like see their money. And we still plan to do that. We think like knowing where you are is such an important part of setting the plan and having comfort in what you're doing. Because women, it's a very common thing. I say women because like I don't talk to men about this. So it's not like women are special as we're getting into the offering.
And you do have men that are a part of Huntress.
Yeah.
Or that are interested in it.
Yeah. And certainly we don't turn any clients away. And I think the offering is relevant to a lot of people. But I think it's relevant to everyone, but we are designing for women. So that's who I interview. And some of it is the tools and the math, right? Like some of it is maybe education and learning how to do it. A lot of it is a mental block. That for some people, it's like, well, I still got time to figure it out, right? Like I'll worry about it when I'm older. For other people, it's like I grew up with no money and now I'm a high earner. And so one, I feel a little guilty, right? Sure. And then two, I'm just like so grateful for where I am that like it feels selfish to want to do more, right? We all have a different relationship with the word rich, right? Yeah. And there's a whole lot, like there's 100 different examples I could give to how we're showing up and why we're not tackling it. But most people we talk with feel capable. They just need support. And sure. So Huntress is, we provide both mindset and financial experts and tools and resources. Again, that education piece is there, but it's really someone to talk to because like you are smart, you are capable. It doesn't have to be that complicated. It's just like you need confidence to move forward. Maybe accountability, maybe a bit of a cheering squad. You know, it's we rally around you to help you build that plan and execute on it because we think you can own it. Nobody knows you better than you do.
Exactly. And no one cares about your money as much as you do. So what is the biggest mistake you see women make when it comes to their finances? Is it that mental block? Is it thinking they have time? What have you seen?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake women make, and I'm going to anchor to that word, is that you don't have to be perfect at this. Like, you will make mistakes, but those mistakes at the end of the day kind of all round out and don't matter. Right? It's that fear of acting and that fear of taking control, or like, even if you do have a strong financial partner, whether it's in a spouse or maybe a parent who's very active and involved, or maybe you have a financial advisor you're paying, not showing up with your values and opinions and priorities and like good questions because you're afraid of being wrong or afraid of looking dumb or, feel guilty about some mistake you did make. Right. So I think the biggest mistake is like fear of mistakes.
Sure.
Or over assuming how risky things are or how bad mistakes can be, is like, at the end of the day, you're going to make them, you're going to learn from them, and you will build more wealth because you started. Like, not starting is probably the biggest mistake.
Absolutely. I think that's been a common theme throughout here is just, I don't know if my plan is right. Doesn't matter. Just start with something. I don't know if this investment is right. It's okay. Just start, because the cost of not investing can be greater than not investing at all.
Yeah. And I'm a fan of like a bunch of little bets, like, to that notion. I'm like, you and I are both like big on real estate, right? But I still think that should only be a certain portion of your portfolio.
Right.
And like, maybe one day you'll have $10 million and you can go put $1 million into real estate. And that could be, 20 different $50,000 chunks that you're putting out there. That would be so fun. Right. But until you're in that range, like, there's ways of doing things that are smaller and more approachable and appropriate diversification. So like, go invest in a REIT with, 2%. Right. Yeah. It's, or like, I personally don't own any crypto, but I'm not like blanket against it. Within proportion, like, right. Go make a bunch of bets, right-sized, appropriate, informed bets. Just go do it. Like, you will lose money. That's something I can guarantee you, is like, some of your bets are going to be wrong. But the whole point of diversification and investing is other bets are going to be way more right.
Just get that Nike mentality. Just do it.
Just do it.
Okay, I want to end with my quick 3-question fire round. The first one will be, what is your favorite media platform to stay up to date on the news?
Yeah, honestly, I just like Apple News, and then I have a bunch of newsletters that I like to. I subscribe to way more than I actually read.
Yeah.
But
yeah, they can become overwhelming.
Yeah, I try to stay away from news that like guesses what might happen, right? I try to stick to like what has already happened news. So like a lot of economics, a lot of politics. Yeah.
Very good. If I pulled a book from behind you on your bookshelf and found $100,000 in there, how would you invest it today? And it can't be in your business.
Oh, honestly, I would just go put it in the stock market, because again, to what portion I might go do an alts. 10K is kind of hard to go do an alt investment with 10 or 20K. Maybe it's out there. There's some VC funds that you check like that, or could do some angel investing. But I would go put it in the stock market. I would divide it between, again, just U.S. stocks, total market. I'm comfortable with my risk position to not put much in bonds, maybe 5%.
Yes.
And then international stocks. So I'm a big like 3 portfolio girl.
Yep. Yeah, to your point, it just depends on where you are and what your portfolio looks like overall.
And like, just to be clear, that would take me 10 minutes. Like,
right.
Do the wire transfer or whatever transfer to my brokerage, and then buy 3 stocks. Like, it's not a huge time investment, and I'm very confident like that I will be compensated for the risk I'm taking.
Right. Okay, last question is, have you read a book recently that you've really found inspiring or interesting?
I'm like so heavy on recency bias for this. Like, every book I read, that's not true, but most books I read, I'm like, I find inspiring. So I'm on Goodreads. I track them all there.
Oh, nice.
Like a follow. I'm reading a ton of financial books right now, but something I'm reading right now that's actually giving me a lot of perspective is Sapiens, like the history of humankind.
That's cool.
And it's a nonfiction, like it's good. But it gives just like a whole lot of perspective of like, we live in this like little blip of time.
Yeah.
And like, we are the product of like millennia of like evolution. And I don't know, I just love the perspective and some of the insights into like human behavior and like what makes us special. It's cool.
That is really interesting. I'm gonna have to pick up a copy and follow you on Goodreads.
Yeah, there's some very salacious fiction, but there's also some really good nonfiction.
Well, Stephanie, thank you so much. Why and how should people reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can check out Huntress Wealth it's HUNTRESSWALTH.com. And from there, you can sign up, become a member, or check out our newsletter or podcast. So highly recommend engaging with us there. I'm personally medium active on LinkedIn. So you can just find me, Stephanie Guttman, and love to continue the conversation if anyone wants to talk, building that wealth and kind of no matter where you are in that journey.
Perfect. Well, thank you again. I hope people have gathered some just basic financial concepts to help them at least propel them further into wealth building or just even starting out. So until next time, adios.
Yeah. Hi, Bella.
Thank you for tuning in today. If you found any value and want to support the podcast, I would be forever grateful if you texted someone the link. You can say that you have a podcast episode that may be interesting for them. Also, if you have questions or topics you want covered, please don't hesitate to reach out on LinkedIn or Instagram. Remember that every step makes a difference. I hope that you continue to learn how to get richer and stay that way.